The Atlantic was founded in 1857. So, as you can imagine, it's a paper that has a rich history, and due to that, it also comes with significant prestige. And the question is, who reads The Atlantic? Because I'm pretty sure most of you have never heard about it. That is because it's usually read by upper middle class rich people that are left leaning. And one thing you need to understand about these people that are extremely influential and also wealthy is the way they behave in public. You see, they keep their private opinions usually to themselves. It doesn't matter what they think. What they say is what is considered appropriate to discuss. So, if for instance 2 plus 2 equals 5 is appropriate to discuss, it doesn't matter if they think it's 4, that's what they will say. Because that's the circle that they spin in. You know, like if you're at the corporation and the HR hag is looming over you, if you want to keep your job, assumingly, you're going to say what the HR hag wants you to say. You're not going to say what you actually think. And so what is appropriate to say are things that are posted in publications like The Atlantic. And up until now was respect the pronouns, worship Dr. Fauci, you know, like the left-leaning talking points. This is pretty much how you manage to get a society where people say, okay, we need to save grandma, we need to shut down all of our businesses, we need to keep everyone indoors. Unless they're protesting for BLM, keep the businesses shut, let the rioters out, pull them back in, we need to save grandma, to war for Ukraine. Like, none of those fiery but peaceful protests make any sense unless you actually understand how the upper middle class rich people work, right? Like, it doesn't matter what they believe. They obviously see the bullshit. It's just that, number one, they're not affected by the bullshit because they don't live in those areas. And number two is that they really care about prestige. They're really interested, like, what other people think about them. So they constantly read The Atlantic. Now, when you see that The Atlantic is suddenly talking against transgender issues, that's really interesting because transgender issues are also being discussed in the United Kingdom. Now, for those of you that use the internet, you know that transgender issues was almost like a religion. Not to use someone's pronoun was heresy of the highest order. Even talking against trans issues, you would get in a lot of trouble. Like either the algorithm would suppress you, either you'd have people harassing you, you may have people calling your workplace, doxing you, like all of these things were just, I wouldn't even say taboo. There was some religious zealotry surrounding it. And obviously the reason is that it was a huge grift. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry managed to make quite a significant amount of money. Imagine managing to put a person on a lifetime of medication, right? Like, obviously that someone is getting paid for that. The activists themselves managed to get a lot of power. I mean, in 2020, you could be like part of a priesthood if you were that type of guy. Being able to go to various speaking events, talking to politicians, shaking hands, operating with NGOs. Like, it was the dream of any person that doesn't have any other useful skill besides flapping their mouth. And it seems that all of that is coming to an end. I mean, the writing is on the wall. When I see that the United Kingdom all of a sudden managed to figure out what a woman is, I mean, apparently the definition of a woman is a person with an XX chromosome. Anything besides that, literally anything under the sun, is a man from a legal perspective. So, like, the British government all of a sudden managed to fix that debate. But now, The Atlantic is talking about what happened at SCOTUS, and a lot of sacred cows were sacrificed, like things that you wouldn't be able to discuss in public without repercussions. So, they're actually talking, like, how did we get to the point where you have activists saying that a 5-year-old can transition? Because 5-year-olds cannot consent, right? Like, they cannot be drafted to the military, they cannot get married, and obviously if that's the case, like, why would they able to consent on life-altering journey? They were saying the activist chant. I'm pretty sure like a lot of you have heard it because it was parroted in a lot of mainstream media outlets, social media was promoting it. Would you rather have a dead son than a live daughter? right? So like they were constantly saying that the suicide rates amongst the trans people is so staggeringly high that the only solution, the only salvation possible is the life-altering journey. And if you don't do that, then you will end up with a dead son, right? And this was like beyond question. Like you weren't allowed to speak against it. Now, it's not that people believed it. Is that you had an army of 100 IQ HR ladies that would get you fired if you said anything else. And social media would ban you. You would have people harassing you. Or, you could say it and no one cared. Because, like, you weren't able to do any change. It's usually like they were worried about the influential people not saying it. Farmer John saying it on his social media Facebook post, no one gave a shit, right? But like if you were someone significant, like a journalist, a politician, a celebrity, well, those were the people that were actually being policed. So apparently, as The Atlantic says, there were like various variations of the praise. And Tennessee law apparently prohibited the use of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to treat minors with gender dysphoria. Now, this is something very interesting because I heard Vosh, I think like Hassan, and many other people like constantly saying, there are no minors that are taking sex change formulas, right? Like this is not a thing. It doesn't exist. But when Tennessee decided to push for a law that prevents minors getting these, all of a sudden you have people rising up, and the activists have took this all the way to SCOTUS. Interesting, isn't it, right? There is a huge problem with this emotive formulation. It isn't true. Now, usually what I learned from engaging with American culture is that everything that's emotional, died to 11, probably bullshit. Like, if you have someone that's trying to make an emotional argument, and you look, and you notice that they're either from the English-speaking sphere or they're French, 9 out of 10 times the emotional argument is just false. Especially when they dial it to 11. It's like, it's part of the culture, right? So, this is a trend. Like, for anyone that studies American history and culture and British history, you'll notice that it keeps happening. Like, they have a moral panic where they say, like, this thing is destroying our society. If we ban/get rid of this thing, our society prospers. They ban/get rid of the thing, nothing changes, and eventually people get pissed off and push it back. And while this is happening, a lot of people are grifting, a lot of money is being made. Take alcohol, for instance, right? Like the classic story, the abolition period. During the abolition period, like, okay, there were actually some people that were getting drunk and they were beating their wives. Absolutely, alcohol is a vice. They got rid of it. Did their society got fixed? Like, was it the land of milk and honey? No, what happened is that some people that probably didn't even have a wife or that they could just drink properly, well, now they were getting fined, now they couldn't have a drink for no reason whatsoever, just because they were cursed to live in America during the abolition period. The video games cause violence nonsense, right? Like you have the ESRB being implemented, which is now a corrupt organization that is forcing video games to be woke, because otherwise they are blackmailing them with the rating. Did violent video games do anything? No. Were video game developers better off under the system? No. Was there grift? Absolutely. Right? So like every single time they come up with some dumb shit that's emotional, some people are grifting out of it. And it usually lasts for like 10, maybe 15 years and then it gets pushed back. The same thing with this level of activism, right? Like you come up with the emotional thing. It's like, would you rather have a dead son or a living daughter? How the fuck do you see the future? Like what is, But you weren't allowed to challenge it because that's what happens in a moral panic. Not only are you not allowed to challenge it, but you're not allowed to associate with people that challenge it, which is why it's going to repeat ad nauseum. But apparently, like research is showing that there is no evidence in the study that this treatment, right, like transitioning your son to a daughter, there is no evidence that the treatment reduces suicides. It's interesting because this wasn't even discussed. Like, this wasn't even up for debate. Because I always wondered, it's like, do we have a study that shows? There were a couple of institutions that attempted the study. I think like Bath Spa University tried a similar study. And they were shut down. It's not politically correct. there was a subreddit where people who detransitioned would post their horror stories, and they would say how it actually made it worse. The activists did everything they could in order to take that subreddit down. Matt Walsh's video, you guys remember, he went to actual doctors and activists and asked them, what is a woman? And they immediately started feeling uncomfortable. They didn't want to have the conversation. All of the trans debate was done on blackmail, as in disagree with me and you get fired. And it was also done on pure emotion-driven arguments. And of course, like, there's more than that. Teachers in schools, like, they got really involved into it, and they did their best in order to crack eggs. And they posted those stories on TikTok. That's how Libs of TikTok became a thing, right? Even though, like, the activists were pretending that such cases don't exist, and even though it was in front of our very eyes and they were trying to get Libs of TikTok banned for exposing these cases. But anyway, there is no evidence that in some cases that the studies reduce the risk of harm. And the reason for that is that completed, right? Now there's a difference. Completed suicide is rare. And we're talking about a very small population of individuals with studies that don't necessarily have completed, what I can't say because of the algorithm within them. So in other words, like, what they did is if you had like a kid which was crying for attention and, you know, they would scratch their arm or some shit, they would count that as part of the percentage of suicides. And then they created another category, the completed ones, right? And apparently, like, the completed ones are very, very low. But the attention-seeking ones, and by the way, like, in my class, like, back when I grew up, there were several kids that were doing this shit, cries for attention. Those kids obviously, like, need counseling. They need parents to talk with them. But there is no hysteria built around it, right? Like, we do not uproot our entire society because kids that are desperate for attention exists. So anyway, The Atlantic, like, this is The Atlantic editorializing. Here was the trans rights movement greatest legal brain speaking in front of the nation's highest court. And what he was saying was that the strongest argument for a hotly debated treatment was in fact not supported by the evidence. I think, like, I saw this during the pandemic, which, again, right, like, emotions dialed to 11, you're killing grandma, all that type of shit, like, moral panic to the absolute extreme. And then some people were like, well, you know, actually, maybe there's no evidence for this, there's no evidence for that, okay, we exaggerated with this and that. But there was a lot of grift to be made. There's a lot of money to be made, a lot of people profited. And this is just like an American tradition, but I guess it finally did its course. I do feel sorry for the people that are in the LGB community, and even some of the T, I'm not going to lie. Because here's what happens, right? Historically speaking, there has never been such high acceptance for the LGBT people. Like, I don't think, like, any time in history would companies, like, make room just to hire people that are part of the LGBT to fill a diversity quota. Representation, like, mainstream movies, everything, right? So, like, if you're a gay person that grew up in a time where it was difficult to get a job, or you were getting bullied in high school, or all this type of shit just because you're gay, right? And all of a sudden, you managed to get gay marriage, you managed to get society to leave you alone, mission accomplished, right? But then the activists latch on with various grifts, and the pharmaceutical industry is now taking an interest. They lob you with those activists. And now, you know, the loudest voices, unfortunately, the extremists get to define a movement. And the pendulum is swinging in the opposite direction. It is what it is. Yeah, it's like the two-party system, right? Like, the pendulum has swung too far to the left, now it's going to the right. I guess you gotta wait 20 more years before it goes back to the left again. Tough shit. I speak with a lot of L and G people, right? LG. Maybe B, right? Because, like, some of them overlap. And they're livid about this. And they were livid about this since 2020. And they were like, this is hurting us. This is like, why do they have to push for kids? Like, this is what they never understood. Even some trans people were like, why do they have to push for kids? Why is their obsession? Like, an auto obsession. It's like, okay, a 5-year-old went to school. Why is the teacher trying to crack the egg? What are they gaining from this? And what they were gaining from this is, like, again, the pharmaceutical industry is like, well, they absolutely love The idea that you can take a person from a young age and then put them on a lifetime of medication, and the surgery itself is expensive, so like they were profiting off of it big time. And of course, like the more trans people there are, the more need for activists, right? Like without trans people, you can't have trans activists. So, yeah, all in all, again, we're witnessing the matter getting put to a close. If The Atlantic is writing about this, if the UK is writing about it, I expect that 2 or 3 years from now, this is going to be a non-issue. Again, this is based on pattern recognition with other moral panics, with other cultural issues. This is usually how it ends. Like when the side that started it eventually publishes it in their publications, saying, all right, maybe this was wrong, this was bad. And as you can see, like The Atlantic is pretending that they always were the reasonable people. It's just that there wasn't enough research for them to call it out. But now there is. Let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you on my live stream. There is a link to it in the pinned comment. Take care.